Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
It is the Japanese Grand Prix preview. It's going to happen next, and we are talking everything Suzuka. Japan, oh wow, such a beautiful place. I've always wanted to go. I've yet to go. Darren, tell us about Suzuka.
Well, I've wanted to go to Suzuka. I've been to Japan, worked there lots, talked about it last time, but never actually been to the track. But I am the person that since 1986 has got up in the middle of the night every year, COVID exceptions. So I love it, mate. And it's getting up and feeling really sleepy, 5 minutes before the race starts, just to make sure you've got enough sleep. You sort of come into it in a little dreamy world. So for me, Suzuka, Japan has this dream effect. So then going there and experiencing the culture back in 2019 in Tokyo and Osaka, wow, what an amazing place, mate. The food, the people, the politeness, the courtesy, the etiquette, it's so... Oh, I've got a hair on my microphone, mate. The cleanness, everything about it. So to experience Japan and to experience that at Suzuka with one of the most favourite tracks for drivers ever, and so much history.
But why is it the favourite? I know this. Drivers go on about Suzuka. It's usually up there in their top three tracks. What makes Suzuka so special?
Well, I think it's got everything. So it's got some real similarities with Silverstone. So it's got some really fast long straights. It's got some fast corners. But it's also got some left and right slow corners, medium speed. It's got everything. It's got a 180-degree hairpin. It's got a chicane as the last corner before the main straight. It's just got everything a driver wants, all thrown into 1.5 minutes.
And also, there's a lot of history as well with Suzuka that comes with it. Some tragic as well.
Well, I'd say my first early memory of late 80s of races in Japan, early morning, were the drivers' championship deciders between Senna and Prost. So in 1989, they basically hit each other on the last chicane. All right, and Prost was out. Senna went on to win the race, but was then disqualified to allow Alessandro Nannini his first win. Let me get this right, which meant Prost won the championship. Following year, first corner, Senna's on pole, bang, they take each other out again. All right, which I think meant Senna won the championship. And it's always been quite controversial. So mega exciting between those two. And Japan is where you'll always remember those memories. And then in 2014 was the really sad event of under a safety car, or I think it could be yellow flags, actually, I'm not sure. Jules Bianchi went off in a really rain-affected Grand Prix when one of the recovery vehicles was recovering another car on the Degner curve, and he went straight into the back of it and sustained head injuries, which never ever regained consciousness and sadly passed away 9 months later. So, they did everything they could for him. And, of course, Jules Bianchi is quite famously known as Charles Leclerc's godfather. So I think part of the Jules Bianchi story is the Charles Leclerc story.
I think Leclerc and other drivers will be paying their respects certainly for that. And
for sure.
It's a reminder that Formula One is a very, very dangerous sport. Now, it's less dangerous than it was, certainly, because in the 50s and 60s, every race there'd be another fatality, it seemed.
Yeah.
And pioneers like Sir Jackie Stewart and Senna actually really campaigned to bring driver safety to the forefront. And it was actually, I think Senna had a meeting the morning of his fatal crash.
Yes.
To say that no, we want a drivers association again, so we can discuss safety and we can improve things. And irony that he died that day after Roland the day before. But so Suzuka, that's certainly something to ponder. But very fast, very exciting track. There have been some changes as well, and one of the notable changes that Sebastian Vettel was back. not driving. But he will be at turn 2 with his Bs. So I don't know if everyone's seen this, but obviously Vettel is a big light on sustainability. He shines a light on that. And I think it's one of the reasons why he kind of maybe moved away from the sport. And he started to drive himself between races. I know in Europe, certainly, where you can do that. But he has actually installed tons of beehives on turn 2. And bees are great because they go and pollinate other flowers, and then it's kind of a cyclical part of the ecosystem. And bees, we really rely on bees. Just look at Clarkson's farm; he'll tell you everything you need to know about bees. So it's great to see Vettel there with the drivers, and they were out to support with a big photo, except for Sainz and the Haas team. So Haas, we want to see you there doing your diversity bit.
They need to be.
And they need to be, yeah. I mean, they've probably got more to focus on, to be fair. But yeah, you can make the picture, boys. Come on,
yeah.
You can do that.
I know, mate. I know Vettel. Obviously he retired last season and said he wanted to spend more time at home. He's been at lots of the races this season, and for great reasons as well. So clearly he's still missing it and wanting to be there. Doing the sustainability thing is fantastic to have somebody leading that within Formula One, because doing the net zero by 2030, being able to bring more than just thinking about fuel consumption and air pollution, we need to be repairing everything as well. So I think what he's bringing to the party right now is fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a car at some point again, maybe as in the way Lawson has come in for Ricciardo or something. I don't know if he'll get a race seat for another season, but I wouldn't be surprised one day we see him back in a car.
I think he was asked recently, and he said, well, never say never again. It's that kind of thing, because look at Lauda.
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm done, then he came back. Look at Schumacher, no, I'm done, then he came back.
Alonso, Raikkonen, they've all done it, and they're all great drivers as well, the great ones. I don't think you lose it. And even physically, we think Nigel Mansell won his championship when he was 39. And what's Vettel now, 36, 37? Wow. So, yeah, there's plenty of time.
Well, I think if Alonso and Hamilton are still going, certainly I think there's a bit of time. But maybe it's one of those cases. Look, they've got plenty of reserve drivers now. It's not like, I think back in the day they were called back a legend and said, look, can you drop in? Who did that? There was someone who did that, who came back for one or two races.
How long ago,
I
Joe?
can't remember now. I think it was a couple of years ago. Okay, we'll
have to look into that.
Then please let us know in the comments.
Excellent
and we're
idea.
enjoying your comments, by the way, so please do that. Talking to drivers coming back, what about drivers staying? So Oscar Piastri has extended his contract to 2026 with McLaren. Obviously, they see a bright future with him, Darren.
Well, I think it's quite clear now that we've seen an absolute star launch onto the 2023 season at McLaren, and really showing Norris, taking Norris to the edge, pushing Norris even more. Of course, as Brits, we want to see Norris be a future world champion. But I think also last week, I think Piastri could have been one of the drivers of the day. I hadn't realised until after our podcast, that he went from 17th to 7th. Which is one of the biggest movers across the whole grid. And he didn't have the McLaren upgrades that Lando had last week. He is going to have them in Japan. So I think we've got to watch Piastri this weekend as well. I think he's a fantastic addition to Formula One. Gutted that Ricciardo lost his seat to a fellow Oz. But I think he's brilliant, and he's quite understated as well at the moment. When he's not quite media ready yet. He's a little bit green with it all. So it'd be interesting to see how he grows, and to see if actually he can get his maiden victory before Lando. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. You've got the Aussies, Kiwis with Liam Lawson in, and look at AlphaTauri. A lot of talk about this at the moment. Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Lawson. I think it would be real injustice if Liam Lawson doesn't get an F1 seat.
Yeah.
And surely you've got teams like Williams and Haas who are saying, well, we'll have you and you can be our driver because he's got so much potential. And those teams, they can compete against AlphaTauri. So I think there's certainly inroads there. I love the idea of him staying in the Red Bull family. I think he'd be a good fit with Max. I think that could be something. Is it too early? Perhaps. But he's shown he can go straight in at the deep end. And I think it's a coin toss. You know, they're saying that Yuki and Daniel will stay for next year. You know, and apparently Yuki's contract is going to be renewed at Suzuka this weekend. Okay. And there've been an announcement I've heard. But is Ricciardo going to join? I don't know. I really want Liam in the season next year. He's like a Piastri. He's this guy's coming from down under. They're taking all our seats, all our jobs.
But you know, De Vries went into the Williams for one race last season and had a great race, and then of course going into the AlphaTauri really struggled. It's very difficult to know just within 2 or 3 races. Daniel has years and years and years of success and history, especially with Red Bull. But I think those AlphaTauri seats, my instinct is probably we'll see Ricciardo and Tsunoda in there next season. I'd love to see Lawson in the other Williams. I was really pleased Logan Sargent managed to get into Formula One because he was struggling to get the super license points last season that he needed to get that drive. He managed it, but he's just not had the rub of the green really. Yet. And there's still time to get some points in there. But Albon, of course, has shown his experience and led that team through this season into a lot of Q3 top 10 starts. You know, so I think Lawson would be a great shot. And I know that Williams have been looking at him anyway. Over the last few years and considering him. But, you know, I look at Lawson, but I still see Drogovic as well there, you know, as the Ferrari number 3 driver who won F2. You know, he needs to be driving as well.
Schumacher is still around.
Yes, he is. He's there. So, and I don't see... I think Mick Schumacher is waiting for Hamilton to retire, and I don't see that happening in the next 3 or 4 years. I've got to be honest. I think the fitness of these guys compared to 20, 30 years ago is another level. So age is less of a factor than it was. So I can see Hamilton racing into his mid-40s easily if he still has the hunger. So it's difficult. We need another 2 teams. That's what we need. We need 4 more seats. Come on, high tech. You know, come on, Andretti. We need you in Formula One.
Yeah, that would solve the problem. A couple more teams. The paddock is going to be very, very busy then. It's already crazy busy now. But yeah, that would solve the problem. And there are drivers there, really good drivers who are able to fill that. But F1's about results. Logan Sargent, yes, it's great to see new faces coming in. But if he's just going to keep crashing the car, he's not going to have any points, get Liam in there. You know, Liam and Albon... what an amazing team that would be.
I think it would be really important.
Be pretty quick.
And Aston Martin have shown us this season, you know, that if they had 2 drivers consistently scoring points, they would be second in the championship. And now, you know, being 4th, I'm just looking here, and you know, and 72 points behind Mercedes now. They're not going to make that up with the fact that Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren, the upgrades on those cars over the last 7 or 8 races has been astounding. And to get to this point in the season, knowing you're not going to win the Constructors' Championship or the Drivers' Championship, I would have expected them to be putting all their efforts into 2024. But they're all bringing upgrades right now all the time. And I think we are seeing a little bit of a sea change here. I know we all watched Singapore last week and just felt it was a one-off and Red Bull just had a bad weekend, bad track. I think we're seeing Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren really take a big leap forward. I think it's all open this weekend. If it's a dry race, for Red Bull should be there, 1 and 2, of course, but they should be there every weekend, 1 and 2, we've said. But if we're going to have a little bit of rain, and in Japan, rain affects so much. Last year, we had a massive delay, so it was over 3 hours the race. 3 hours, 1 minute it was. And, we were there getting up early in the morning, then sat waiting and waiting. Another cup of coffee. I had 2 cups of, But so we could see wet weather. We could see another Zandvoort weekend where the weather is totally changeable.
Yes.
And we love it. We absolutely love it. So I wouldn't, I know.
Carnage.
Carnage. Exactly. That's what we need. And Japan is the place to get, if you're going to get rain, you get it in bucket loads out there.
Yeah, we can't discount the Red Bulls. Obviously, phenomenal season so far. It depends on the car. I think the car let Max down. And yeah, it was just very bad form. And, it doesn't help. Humid, the heat, maybe that affects them too. It affected everybody. But yeah, look, they've now maybe acclimatized the time differences and things. Do you reckon they're staying on UK time, European time for Japan?
No, they definitely won't. So the reason they stayed on UK time in Singapore is because it was a night race. So essentially their working hours were just standard European times. But now in Japan, it's a lunchtime race. So they've got to be up, 7 or 8 hours earlier, before race time, up early into the track, as for 7, 8 o'clock, race at 1, 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So they will definitely acclimatise now to Japanese time as soon as they will have got there. So the drivers will have got there Monday or Tuesday, had 3 days before getting in the car. The teams, obviously, they have to work a lot longer hours, but they will all be on Japanese time and then have 2 weeks to get back to Middle Eastern time for Qatar in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's brutal, the jet lag. And when we've worked there, we've kind of done leapfrog. So it's like I'll do a race and then you've done a race. And so it hasn't been too bad. And Europe isn't too bad because you're pretty much on the same, you are on the same time for most of that period. But then when you have to dart off to Miami or dart off to Canada, and I mean, these people. And I saw Vegas, you think Vegas, then doing Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
The week after, I think it is.
That's massive leap. Joe, I've been lucky enough to travel around the world 20, 30 times with my job as a musician. You too, we do it all. But what I find is when I fly from the UK to America, then you just stay up until you're totally exhausted. So by the next day, you've pretty much got there. But when I fly back the other way, or from the UK across to the Middle East or the Far East, oh man, that kills me because you basically lose a day. You have, you've slept, but it's all out of sync. It takes me 3 days to acclimatise if I go in that direction. When I go to America, it's fine. Coming back, shocking. So the guys, though, they are used to doing this. Their bodies are completely messed up. Most people, 99% of the population, they will commute to work maybe an hour most of the time. Every day, they have a routine. These Formula One guys, they have a routine. It's just very, very different. And if you jump from one to the other, it's a killer. And but they've got private jets, mate, to sleep on. I've got zero sympathy with them whatsoever.
Yeah, private jets and all the accoutrements. And literally after the race, I mean, that's it, boom, they're gone. Because the quicker you can get somewhere, the quicker you can acclimatise. But add into that heat as well. Plus, they have a lot of commitments. They've got a lot of media commitments. They've got sponsor commitments. And, it's a full-on week. Yeah. So the media day, which is on Thursdays usually, that's full on for them. So they need to kind of get back with it. But yeah, look, come back to racing. Red Bull, let's keep an eye on them. Definitely, you can't discount them. They are ready to do that. Can Max win the championship if he wins Japan?
Joe, I've got to be totally honest with you. Looking at the maths of it, what have we got now? 7 races left, is it? And looking at it, so 7 races, 175 points. So that would take him to 399. He could get to 400. If Perez doesn't finish and Max wins with fastest lap, then yes, he can. So it needs to go his way.
Yeah. So it needs to go his way. We'll put a maybe just as a disclaimer. But it could happen. But could be. I mean, Can you imagine if Perez was to to win? I don't think it would. I think Max has got the championship in the bag. But
Yeah.
what you were saying earlier about Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari really stepping up this second half of the season, I really can't wait already for next season, because they are, if they keep this on a roll, we can have a really, really amazing season next year.
I do agree with you, but it's difficult to jump ahead too far because, Red Bull were really dominant last season. Max really won that championship, won it in Japan, in fact, last year. And then Russell, the Mercedes really leaped those last few races and won in Brazil. And then nothing happened again. So that trajectory for Mercedes was happening, and then it all just fell back again with a dog of a car at the start of this season. So I feel though, I feel really, really hopeful that we will see multiple winners for the rest of this season, because that is what draws people in. If we're watching Max win we are going to watch history. We have watched history now with 10 race wins in a season. Red Bull aren't going to win every race this season, so history won't be made there. So now I think we're just having some fun. Max is going to sew it up whether Perez doesn't, wins every race. Max will not finish, off the podium for at least 2 or 3, and then it's job done. That's all he needs. So I think we're going to go out and everybody's going to have a bit of fun. There's no pressure on anybody other than who's going to win second place in the Constructors' Championship.
We're just going out. We're just going to have a little drive. Just going to have a bit of fun.
But I think there will be that mentality because the pressure is off. I think the people that have really got to watch their backs actually is Aston Martin, because of McLaren coming up fast behind them. Even though they're about 80 points behind, that could disappear very, very quickly with 2 drivers fighting for podiums as opposed to Alonso now, which seems to be possibly the 5th fastest team right now, and therefore you're fighting for 9th and 10th. Suddenly, from having podiums at the start of the year.
There's that ongoing story about Lance Stroll, obviously. Look, I can't see him actually leaving.
Mate, I can't either. Why would he? It's madness.
That's the thing. You get one. Where else would he go? What I don't get it. I mean, I think he's sheltered for obvious reasons, but he needs to crack on. I mean, people again like Liam, Albon, they could go into that seat and they could really have fun with it because there's that hunger. So I don't want to be unfair to Lance because obviously he's there, he's still in the pack, but it didn't help that he wasn't there at Singapore.
Normally,
let's see what happens at Japan. Yeah,
when there's a board of directors who are making collective decisions, you could sit there and have a vote. But Lawrence Stroll, Lance's dad, owns the whole thing. And he can do what he wants. And if he wants his son in that car for the next 10 years, he will put his son in that car for the next 10 years. And they've always believed if we can put Lance in our team, we can win the World Championship. And the difficult thing is Lance needs a driver next to him who's not going to outshine him. Now, that's not going to happen.
But I would disagree with that. I disagree with that because I think the strategy, I think the strategy they've had is let's put him next to a former world champion. And he's going to learn everything, and then he'll become a world champion himself. So we saw that with Vettel, Alonso. I mean, I don't know who else could go in there. Maybe they'll tempt Hamilton one day. I don't think that would happen. But, it's that kind of thing. Well, there you go, Lance. I mean, have you learned enough from these 2 world champions? Your turn now.
Yeah.
It's just not there. And if the cars are the same, then what's the difference? What's the driving style? Alonso's a very aggressive driver. He really chucks that into the corners. Lance needs to really emulate that and create a driving style that's going to help him get up there midfield minimum.
But he's got a lot of experience now. And when he was at Williams, I always felt he was as good a driver as anybody. The difficult thing is now there's more pressure on him. He's got world champions next to him, which exposes any weaknesses he has, and a car that I suppose they look at it and go, if Red Bull can do it, we can do it. It's just a matter of time. And to be honest, Aston Martin have exceeded expectation this year with their whatever their 5-year, 6-year plan is, and mind you, Alpine had 100 race plan, didn't they? And that got scrapped. I think that is Lawrence Stroll's absolute number one task here is I will make my son world champion, and he will do whatever he has to do to make that happen. So, but as fans, it's difficult to watch, because we would love Lawrence Stroll to make Alonso another world champion right now. We would absolutely love that for next season. But I do believe if
maybe
Red
Alonso,
everyone
maybe Alonso will get a third place. You don't know. I mean, what a great season he's had as well, and and Vettel's probably hanging around because like, how come that didn't happen with me? But there we go. So look, we're going to keep our eyes peeled for the Aston Martin performance, but also everyone's performance for the Japanese Grand Prix. Enjoy it, watch it, get up early, stay up late if you're in the US, and it's going to be a good one. So check us out for the Japanese Grand Prix review, which we'll do after the race. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and a host of others as well. And visit the merch shop, racehouse.cc, for lots of really cool caps and shirts and bottles and all sorts of stuff. We'll see you again for the Japanese review, but from now, it's goodbye from me and from Darren.
Look forward to seeing you on Sunday, Joe. Take care. Bye-bye.